Good morning, everyone, and welcome. My name is Alisa Slodzinska, and I work for the City of Chicago Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection, BACP. Welcome to today's webinar covering Chicago's new mask mandate, specifically covering information for businesses. This webinar will be an overview of the mandate that requires everyone age 2 or older, regardless of vaccination status, to wear a mask in public indoor settings, effective this Friday, August 20th. For those who are seeking business licensing assistance, we strongly encourage the processing of licenses and permits online. Business licenses can be applied for or renewed online by visiting chicagobusinessdirect.org. Or for licensing questions, you can call 312-74-GO-BIZ. And I will post that information in the chat box. We encourage attendees to ask questions. Please use the chat box and send your questions to all panelists. There will be a question and answer session at the end of the presentation. Also, this webinar is being recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel by visiting youtube.com/ChicagoBACP. Thank you in advance for your continued efforts to keep your customers and employees safe and by following this new masking requirement. And now I would like to introduce my colleague, Miguel Campos with BACP. Welcome, Miguel.
Good morning. My name is Miguel Campos. I'm a supervisor with the Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection. To reiterate some issues shared by Elisa already, this webinar is being recorded and will be made available on our BACP YouTube page. You can access the YouTube page by going to chicago.gov business workshops, which is the same website you all use to register for this webinar. This webinar will be hosted a second time tomorrow, Friday, August 20th at 1 p.m. As stated by Elisa, we would like to encourage all of you to ask as many questions as you have. Questions can be typed into the chat panel for the webinar. Questions can also be submitted via email to bacpoutreach@cityofchicago.org. That is the email that will be on the bottom of each slide for this presentation. As stated, we want to extend a thank you to all of our businesses throughout the city for your dedication and sacrifice over the past year. We realize that it's been an extremely challenging year and a half with ever-changing regulations, and we are incredibly thankful to our business community for stepping up to keep your customers and employees safe throughout the pandemic. I will quickly go over the agenda for today's presentation. I'll have a quick overview of our current health metrics. We'll discuss the new mask mandate. We'll cover how to get vaccinated, and then obviously our question and answer session at the end of the presentation. To start off with, I'll remind everyone of our travel advisory. So as of August 17th of 2021, our travel advisory now has 8 states, or added 8 states. We are now at 39 states and 3 territories. Unvaccinated travelers should avoid non-essential travel, and the returning travelers who live or work in Chicago or visitors to Chicago who have traveled domestically are not required to quarantine if they are asymptomatic and fully vaccinated. If you are not vaccinated and you're traveling from a state with 15 or more average daily cases per 1,000 population, which on this map would be anything with a color of orange, you should receive a negative COVID test result no earlier than 72 hours prior to arrival and have proof of negative results or plan to quarantine for 10 days upon arrival. So I'll quickly go over our health metrics, which is the main reason that we are having this webinar today and instituting our new mask mandate. So our Chicago COVID reopening risk matrix for phase 5, the items in yellow are our goal where we would like to be at. So COVID-19 cases diagnosed per day. We are currently at 419 and increasing, and it is for that particular reason that the health department has instituted a mask mandate for anyone over the age of 2. Our COVID-19 test positivity is currently at 4.3% and increasing, which puts us at a lower risk category. Hospital beds, non-ICU occupied by COVID patients are currently at 193 and increasing, again, in the lower risk category. And ICU beds occupied by COVID patients are currently 62 and increasing. So again, our goal is to be in that moderate risk area or better as a result of now being in the 400 high risk section. We have instituted a mask mandate. This data is current as of August 19th. Chicago COVID-19 data is updated every weekday at chi.gov/COVID-. Any websites that I'm mentioning throughout the presentation will be on the last slide of the presentation for you guys to visit. So as you can see here, Chicago COVID-19 case count for the full pandemic has now crossed an average of 400 diagnosed cases per day. While this is still low compared to our high peak season of late 2020, we would like to be under 400 cases a day. As a reminder or breakthrough, so 99.97% of vaccinated Chicagoans have not been diagnosed with COVID-19 after vaccination, which is why we are emphasizing that we would like everyone to be vaccinated. Our current average hospitalization is at 18 per day. Breakthrough-wise, 99.99% of vaccinated Chicagoans have been hospitalized with COVID-19 after vaccination. So even if those being infected are not getting sick enough where they have to end up at a hospital or taking up one of our ICU beds. So now we'll cover our mask mandate. So the new mandate, as Chicago's case counts moves into the higher transmission risk. Masks are now required in indoor public settings in Chicago for all persons aged 2 and over, beginning tomorrow, Friday, August 20th. This mandate will remain in place while our case count remains above 400 cases a day. So again, face coverings are required for everyone, indoors and public settings. As has been throughout the pandemic, the latest and up-to-date overview of COVID-19 regulations in Chicago will be posted at chicago.gov/reopening. You can view and download the Phase 5 guidance, Phase 5 guidance graphics, as well as mask posters and signage in English and Spanish at chicago.gov/reopening. So what does the mask mandate mean for a business owner? So effective August 20th, face coverings must be worn in all indoor public settings, regardless of vaccination status. There are some exceptions built into the order. So if your customers are actively eating or drinking at restaurants, bars, or similar eating establishments, and they're stationary, they can remove their mask. We do ask that customers be fully masked when engaging with your employees, for example, servers. Certain personal service activities that require removal, such as beard shaves or facials, so customers may remove their face covers in those instances. Again, this is removal by customers and not by the employees. And then employees in settings that are not open to the general public, if the employees are static and maintaining at least 6 feet of social distancing. So for example, in an office setting where there's cubicles and the cubicles or desks are 6 feet apart, your employees may remove their mask while they're static and seated at their workstation. If they're milling around or moving around the office, going to the lunchroom, a break room, a restroom, traveling via hallways, and we are asking that in those instances they wear a mask. So masks can be removed while they are seated at their desk if their workstations are maintained with at least 6 feet of social distancing. All businesses and venues should continue to support social distancing to the extent possible. especially in indoor settings. Businesses and venues should apply best practices in managing distancing at such places as concessions, counters, public restrooms, or lines or while queuing in line. We'll quickly cover go over common outdoor and indoor settings. So open air stadiums, for example, Wrigley Field, Guaranteed Rate Field, Soldier Field would be an outdoor setting. Masks do not need to be worn in outdoor settings. Parks or parking lots, some of you have expanded or offered some of your services. For example, fitness classes being held outdoors. In that instance, masks would not need to be worn. Sidewalk cafes, outdoor patios, and expanded outdoor dining areas would be considered an outdoor setting at which masks do not need to be worn. You can still apply for a sidewalk cafe, outdoor patio, or expanded outdoor dining permit for the rest of the year by visiting chicago.gov/BACP. Rooftops and detachable roofs are also considered outdoor settings. Any igloos or one-party enclosures, and then indoor spaces where 50% or more of a wall can be removed via the opening of windows, doors, or panels, provided that dining tables are within 8 feet from such openings. So your firehouse-style doors, if you can open your front windows, remove doors, etc., in those spaces, your customers or employees would not have to be masked. Common indoor settings. Commercial and residential buildings, masks must be worn in common or shared areas. This would include hallways, elevators, laundry rooms, etc. A hotel is an indoor setting. Recreational facilities such as bowling or arcades are considered indoor areas. Museums, gym and fitness centers, this includes both public and private gyms. So a private gym in a residential building would be considered an indoor public space, and masks must be worn while inside. Personal services, retailers, retail stores, performance venues, and movie theaters. An important thing with indoor performances, which would include live musical acts and other types of entertainment, require masks at all times by attendees. If there's a food or drink component to your business, then customers could remove their mask while they're static and eating or drinking. Face coverings for actors or performers are not required during a show, but should be worn during offstage activities, breaks, backstage, or they're interacting with fans. Hospitals are considered an indoor setting, and then public transportation, this has not changed. This includes taxi, ride, hails, and liveries. That is a federal mandate, so on public transportation, masks must continue to be worn. Event venues, we have been receiving multiple questions regarding event venues. For our purposes, they are considered public spaces. So even if the events are private, for example, a wedding, a birthday celebration, a work-related meeting or outing, it is a public space. Most events are attended by members of multiple households, and the events are held at commercial licensed locations. So we received multiple inquiries as to this issue already. If there is no outdoor component to the venue, then masks must be worn while inside. So if you have a wedding scheduled for this coming Saturday, and your venue is an indoor venue, a banquet hall, etc., then your guests and yourself must be wearing a mask unless you are actively eating or drinking while static. There are also variations of instances that can be, or establishments that can be considered both indoor and outdoor. For example, a bar and a restaurant might have both an indoor component and an outdoor component. We discussed health and fitness centers. Some classes are being held outside, a yoga class, running classes outside, etc. It will depend on whether the events are being held indoors or outdoors. A ticketed spectator event could be either indoor or outdoor, depending on the venue. Places of worship, there are some places of worship that have been hosting services in an outdoor park or a parking lot That will be the differentiation or the issue that determines whether you have to wear a mask or not. If services are being held indoors, then all parishioners or attendees of the worship service would have to be wearing a mask if they are over the age of 2. Meetings, conferences, and conventions, festivals, and general admission spectator events, and then flea and farmers markets. So some of these are held indoors. The majority of these are held outdoors. So if they are held outdoors, then mask wearing is not required. Since we're here, I'd like to touch base on the City of Chicago guidance for large-scale events. So large-scale events are being allowed to operate at full capacity. The City of Chicago is strongly recommending that event organizers implement additional health measures when holding large-scale events, such as requiring attendees to be fully vaccinated against COVID-19 or having a negative COVID-19 test no more than 72 hours prior to attending. For all gated or ticketed events, and for events with designated entry checkpoints, the city recommends that you check documentation of vaccination or negative test results at that entry point. Just as a reminder, an individual is considered to be fully vaccinated 2 weeks after their second dose of a 2-dose series, such as Pfizer or Moderna, or 2 weeks after a single dose vaccine, such as the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. So we'll get into the requirements for businesses. So as a business operator or owner, manager, which I assume the majority of our 335 participants are, you are required to ensure that your customers and employees are adhering to the new face covering mandate. Businesses are required to notify their customers prior to entry about the new face covering mandate. For example, post signage that says masks are required for all customers, regardless of vaccination status. We are asking that you post a sign or signage at an entrance to the establishment and in at least one conspicuous location within your establishment. The city is providing signage, so signage is available for downloading by visiting chicago.gov/reopening, clicking on our resources tab from the drop-down menu, and then clicking on communication resources. There is an example of the signage that's available here. So it reads, face coverings are required for everyone as of 8/20/2021. Both vaccinated and unvaccinated individuals must wear a face covering in indoor public spaces. Again, this is suggested guidance. You're encouraged to support social distancing to the extent possible for customers, in particular in indoor settings. Masking remains optional in outdoor settings. Masking is recommended for unvaccinated individuals in crowded outdoor settings. And again, as a reminder, masks remain mandatory on public transportation, healthcare settings, schools, correctional, and congregate settings. That issue has, or this requirement has been in place for several months now. So we will cover items that are not changing. So the new health order is not updating guidance on the following. So we are not instituting capacity restriction. This includes limits on party sizes or table sizes. There are no social distancing requirements. There are no limits on your hours of operation, no curfews, etc. That being said, the potential for further restrictions exists if cases rise over 800 a day or hospitalization stats rise in an untenable way. That is the reason we began today's webinar by covering over our health metrics. So again, if cases rise over 800 a day, which would be more or less double what they are today, or if our hospitalization rates rise, then the above mentioned items on this slide might be instituted again. So the new mask requirement will become a suggestion, or can become a suggestion, once we consistently are under 400 cases a day, and it will be removed completely if we fall back under 200 cases a day. So we'll get to the COVID-19 vaccine. So all Chicagoans age 12 and over are eligible to get vaccinated. Most Chicagoans are receiving their vaccines through pharmacies, Walgreens, Mariano's, Walmart, Joe Lasco, Costco, etc. Walk-ins or appointments are available. You can contact individual providers for details. You can also obtain a vaccine through your healthcare provider. You can register online at chicago.gov@home to receive the vaccine at home, or call our vaccine finder hotline at 312-746-4835 to obtain a vaccine. You may also go to sacdoc.com/vaccine just to iterate the importance of vaccination once again. Your first contact should be your healthcare provider, including your primary care provider, health clinic, or hospital where you've gotten medical care in the past. You can go to your pharmacy. The city of Chicago has provided vaccines to pharmacies across Chicago. These pharmacies each have their own registration link. Pharmacies have been asked to prioritize Chicagoans and current patients. And then once again, the SACDOC website to streamline the availability of vaccines. For the most part, they're generally available at any time of the day. Again, you can go to chicago.gov/vaccine finder or 312-746-4835 by calling. We want to reiterate that COVID-19 vaccines are safe, effective, and widely available across the city. Everyone aged 12 and older should be vaccinated against COVID-19 as soon as possible to keep you from getting or spreading COVID-19. We do ask you, if you're sick with COVID-19 or think you may have COVID-19, stay home, avoid public spaces except to get medical care. So before we start our question and answer session, we have listed the websites I mentioned during the presentation in the below slide. We will now try our best to answer any questions you may have. In the case that we need to collaborate with other partner agencies, whether it's the Illinois Department of Public Health, the City of Chicago Department of Public Health, or any other sister agency, I may request that you submit your question to bacpoutreach@cityofchicago.org, and we will get back to you as soon as we can. Before getting to questions, I would like to remind attendees that many government and community partners are offering some sort of financial relief and support services. You may visit chicago.gov/NBDC to find one near you. You would click on the financial resources tab on the bottom. There will be information on how you can get loans, for example, from the Small Business Administration on that site. With that being said, I will now turn things over to Elisa, who will go through the questions that have been asked, and then we will provide answers to your questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Miguel, for presenting today. We will now be going through questions. Please bear with us as we try our best to answer all the questions. If we do not get a chance to answer your question, as Miguel stated, please send us an email at bacpoutreach@cityofchicago.org. And first question that we have is, please let us know how the new mask mandate applies to private offices which are not open to the public, such as hallways and other common areas that are only open to employees but not the general public.
Some of those points were answered throughout the presentation. So at their actual individual workstation, you would be able to remove your mask, or your employees can remove their mask if their cubicle or desk or workstation is socially distanced at a minimum of 6 feet. We do ask that while your employees are moving through common areas, such as hallways or a lunchroom or a break room, or if they are front-facing and interacting with the public, for example, your receptionist, that those and those instances, they should be wearing a face cover. But if you are a private entity, office relate or office type business, then your employees may remove their mask, again, if they're static and their individual workstations are properly social distanced.
Thank you. Next question is, Does this mask mandate include the indoors of condominium associations?
Yes. So any common or shared spaces would be included in this mask mandate. So, for example, in a condo building, it'll be your lobby area, elevators, hallways as residents are walking into their condo buildings, apartments, residences, any shared space inside. So, party room that may be offered, laundry room, gym or fitness center, you would be required to ensure that the residents are wearing masks while in common or shared areas within residential condo buildings.
Thank you. And while some of these questions were answered during the presentation, it could be helpful for us to reiterate some of the key points. One of those being, are performers on stage in a performance venue required to wear masks?
They are not. As stated, it's something that we covered. So actors or performers are not required to be masked during a show while they're actively presenting or putting on a show. But we do ask that they be worn during off-stage activities. So on the way to the stage, off stage, if there are break, backstage, etc. This would include items such as musical acts or a player performance being performed by actors.
And you covered this, but are there any signage requirements or requirements of the business to enforce the mandate?
Yes, I covered that. I'll go back a couple of slides to show you where you may get them. So we are asking that you can either make up your own sign or feel free to download ones that are being provided by the city. They're in color and you can save them as PDF, print them. You can reach out to us and supply allowing, we can mail some out to you. But yeah, we are asking you to post a sign or signage informing customers prior to entry and then in at least one location within the establishment. And signage is available for downloading by visiting chicago.gov/reopening, clicking on the resources tab from the drop-down menu, and then clicking on communication resources. At the moment, the signs are available in English and Spanish.
Thank you. Are businesses that are not open to the public and all employees in the office are vaccinated, are they still required to mask while in the office?
It'll go back to the initial issue of how the workspace is spaced out. If the individual workstations are 6 feet apart, then no, at that instance, masks can be removed. However, when they're moving around through shared spaces, masks should be worn. So even if, for the most part, you are not open to the general public, if your workstations are not socially distanced at a minimum distance of 6 feet, then we are asking that you're considered a public space and masks should be worn.
And going back to office settings, in our office, we have placed plastic barriers on all sides of cubicles and are currently allowing employees not to wear masks at their desk, but only in common areas. Since we have the barricades in place, do they need to wear a mask while sitting at their desk if they are not 6 feet apart?
For this question with impermeable barriers, I will have to reach out to our partners at the health department to give you an exact answer. If you can please email that question to becpoutreach@cityofchicago.org with your contact information, we will get back to you within a couple of hours today.
Great. Can individuals at gyms temporarily remove their masks to drink?
Yes, if they're static, then yes, masks can be removed to take a swig of water, your sports energy drink, whatever it might be. So masks can be removed while drinking water.
Is a private event considered a public setting at a venue?
Yes, we covered this during the presentation. So private events being held at event venues are considered public settings. So all attendees ages 2 and over must wear a face mask unless they are actively eating or drinking. If the entire event's being held in an indoor setting. Again, some venues have outdoor settings. If a portion of your festivities are being held in the outdoor setting, at that instant, masks would not be required.
And going back to gyms, if a member of the gym, if a gym member is on the elliptical or treadmill running, can they lower their mask while completing the exercise, or do they need to have it on the whole time?
They would need to have their mask on at any time while in an indoor setting in the gym or fitness center. So this would mean, in the examples provided, on an elliptical or a treadmill, a face cover must be worn.
Can you go over the guidance if someone has a wedding this weekend? Are they able to remove the masks during the ceremony?
That is a question that I'm going to have to reach out to the health department on. I would say that the majority of the ceremony you'd have to wear a mask. Obviously, there might be exceptions in there for like a first kiss. We wouldn't be asking you to kiss through mask, but I would get exact guidance from the health department for that particular portion of the ceremony.
And we actually encourage, if anyone else has very specific questions relating to their office space or business, their venue, please do send us an email to bacpoutreach@cityofchicago.org, and we will get clarity from the Public Health Department and provide you with a response. Next question is, what if the event venue has a patio or terrace that can be open up to 50%?
So masks would not have to be worn in the actual terrace or outdoor patio area, and masks would not have to be worn for any tables that would be within 8 feet of that 50% opening. So depending on how big your event is, if all tables are located within 8 feet of that opening and on the terrace or patio area, then your guests would not have to wear a mask. Once they are beyond that 8-foot marker, then that would be considered indoor setting. So that might be a mixed match of partial. So half of your attendees may not have a mask on and the other half would be required to have.
What about houses of worship? Does the choir need to keep their mask on the entire time? And what about attendees?
So attendees would have to have a mask on at all times. If the worship services are being held in an indoor setting, the choir would be giving the same exemption that we are providing to performers at an event venue. So the choir, while singing, would not have to have a face cover on, but attendees sitting in pews would.
Can businesses create their own signage if it contains the same language as the signs provided on the city's website?
Yes, you are more than free to create your own signage. The wording doesn't have to be exactly the same. It can just be simple masks are required for entry, and then that would meet the signage requirements of the health order.
Will there be enforcement of this mandate?
Yes, so the Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection, the Department of Public Health, and the Chicago Police Department are all authorized to enforce this new mask mandate. Our initial view of it is that we want to be informational. We want to educate people. So it'll be a written warning if you're found to be attempting your best to adhere to it. Egregious violations of the health mandate can result in tickets and potential closure. That's what we're trying to avoid. Our initial response to this, or the reason we're having these webinars, is to educate people as to what the new regulations are. But there are an array of enforcement actions available to the Health Department, Business Affairs and Consumer Protection, and the Police Department to enforce this. Again, the main point of the mask mandate is to attempt to curb the current bend that we're on. We want our daily COVID positive rate to fall under 400 so that this regulation can be removed. So that the health and safety of citizens is the reason that the mask mandate has been put in place.
And speaking of data, it is available on the website chi.gov/COVID-. I will post that link in the chat. It is updated daily during the weekdays, so you could reference the data there. Next question is, are employers required to provide masks to their employees?
I will get a definitive answer from you from the health department. For the most part, we have not, in the past, we have not requested that employers provide masks to their employees. It is an option many of you have chosen to take up. Many of you business owners, in particular in the hospitality industry, have masks available for people as they're walking in if they forgot one or aren't aware of the regulations. It is not a requirement. Many of you have chosen to offer them free of cost on your own will and volition.
And for those requesting a copy of the presentation, we will not be emailing the presentation itself. However, this entire presentation will be available on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Chicago BACP. A question is, how does the mask mandate apply to retail settings?
So what we think of common retail stores are your local grocery store, a Target, a Walmart, CVS, Walgreens, etc. If they're in an indoor setting, then everyone inside the retail store should be wearing a mask. That would be employees and customers. So again, starting tomorrow, anyone over the age of 2 in a public setting, which retail store would be considered, must wear a mask.
In terms of a wedding, if eating and drinking must be static, is it assumed that a cocktail reception where guests are standing is not permitted?
No, a cocktail reception where guests are standing is permitted. So again, we just ask that that we're not instituting previous requirements where people who are eating or drinking must be seated at all times while doing it. So you would be allowed to have a cocktail reception where people can walk around between tables. What we mean by static is if you're moving from table A to table B to talk to your friends at that table and you're holding, wear a mask while moving between tables. And then once you're at the table, actively talking to your friends, whether drink in your hand, taking sips from it, then your mask can be removed. So there are no restrictions as to whether you are standing or eating, standing or seated while eating or drinking.
If employees/coworkers are working in a conference room, are they required to wear a face covering if they are static and maintaining social distance?
Yes, in a conference room setting, that is not typically the workstation where they would permanently be seated. So in a conference room setting, even if socially distanced or 6 feet apart, we would request or ask that employees be wearing a mask.
Does the signage requirement apply to private businesses with no public access?
Yes, you would be informing your employees of what the current City of Chicago regulations would be.
And just once again, this webinar is being recorded and will be made available on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Chicago BACP. Question is there an exemption for those with medical conditions/disabilities?
Yes, the health order is requesting it will be officially published later today. I know that was issues or questions that we've gotten already. Anyone who is medically able to wear a mask should be wearing a mask. So there would be an exemption if you have a medical reason for why you would not be wearing a mask.
Once again, can you confirm that this mask mandate is for the city of Chicago, not the county or state?
Correct. The health order that will go into effect tomorrow only applies to the city of Chicago. It does not apply to the remainder of Cook County or the state of Illinois.
Is the face mask required on a dance floor?
Yes, dance floors are not being closed, but face masks would be required on a dance floor, for example, at a wedding venue or a venue hosting a wedding.
What action is suggested if someone refuses to comply when coming into a business?
You can ultimately deny them entry. Again, that it's up to you. It's within your rights to deny entry to anyone for not following specific guidelines. Many of you have dress codes, for example, things of that sort. We've all seen typical no shoes, no shirt, no service signs. You can refuse entry to someone not wearing a mask. Obviously, your explanation would be that you do not want to potentially receive any enforcement document, whether it's a notice to correct or a citation for allowing a patron to come in without a mask.
Question for regarding a yoga studio. Once an individual is on their personal mat, would they be allowed to remove their mask to practice yoga if they are 6 feet apart?
They would not. If the yoga studio is having classes indoors, then even if the individual mats are placed 6 feet apart, participants, students must wear a mask in indoor settings. That would obviously not be the case if you are hosting your yoga class in an outdoor setting, for example, a park.
If a bar is predominantly standing room with limited tables, does everyone need to wear a mask?
Yes, people inside the bar would have to wear a mask unless they are actively drinking. In this example that was given was a bar. So if someone's standing with their friends drinking, they can lower their mask and then put it back up when they are not drinking.
What if everyone at a private event, such as a wedding, is verifying vaccinations at the door?
There are no built-in exceptions or exemptions for fully vaccinated events. If it is an event being held in an indoor setting, regardless of vaccination status, everyone must wear a face cover.
And before we conclude, final question will be, once again, can you repeat the guidelines for a live band with a singer?
So the performers, so a live band with a singer would fall under the actors or performers. They would not be required to wear masks during the show. Again, this is working under the assumption that there's no interaction with fans. If the singer of the band is walking up to people, then he should be wearing a mask. But if they're just on a stage with the rest of the band, then performers are not required to wear a mask during the show.
Great, thank you so much, Miguel, for covering the mask mandate. Once again, going into effect this Friday, August 20th. This webinar was being recorded and will be made available on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Chicago VACP. If your question was not answered, or if you think of a question, please send it to bacpoutreach@cityofchicago.org. On behalf of BACP, I want to thank everyone for joining this webinar and taking the proactive step to learn about the mask mandate and how it affects your business. Miguel, any final thoughts?
No, as stated by Elisa, any questions that we didn't get to answer or you don't feel comfortable asking in a public setting, please email us at bacpoutreach@cityofchicago.org. You are all more than welcome to attend tomorrow's webinar at 1 p.m. And then to the individuals who asked about the impermeable barriers, mask removal during a wedding ceremony, and then employees providing free masks, employers providing masks to employees. We will get back to you with an answer shortly this afternoon.
Great, thank you again, Miguel, and thank you everyone for joining us. Once again, we will be made available via email and on YouTube to watch this webinar again. Thank you so much. Have a great day.